A motion be agreed to. Chris Ockenwald.
Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and indeed, in relation to this bill, it's a great pleasure to follow from Louisa Walls, who has so ably championed the bill during its passage through the House. And it's great to be here now with the third reading of this bill, approaching closure for one Rowan Sullivan's journey through a labyrinthic experience of battling through a miasmic maze of legislative procedure. For Rowan's family to be so gracious as to pass on the comments that Louisa carried for them is a tremendous tribute to the love they have for for Rowan's natural mother. They have done it for someone who actually isn't here anymore, but who would nonetheless take great satisfaction and comfort from knowing that true love has its way. It's not, though, Mr. Speaker, an unduly complex legislative situation that Rowan faced, because, as Rowan and her family explained to the Select Committee when we met them, and to Louisa, who championed the bill for her within Parliament, the situation that surrounded her family was complex. And I want at this stage, Mr. Speaker, just to reflect briefly on our role as parliamentarians in assisting individual people with complex situations. Because I think when the bill was initially introduced, there was some feeling that it's quite a narrow bill, it has a limited level of interest, it won't affect very many people, or worse, will it set precedents, and all those sorts of legislative questions we ask about things in the normal process of a bill. But I think we are here, Mr. Speaker, and this is a good example of assisting someone in a similar, I guess, in a complex situation, not of their own making, because there was no way in the world anybody else could address this particular situation. But I recall a take-home comment from a constituent in the West Coast, Mr. Speaker, who was having a problem with his immigration status at the time. This was in 2005, and he was told his situation was complex, which is why he was experiencing delays in response from the immigration services. He appealed to me as an MP with the question, and this was the take-home message that I got from it. His question was, do government departments in New Zealand only do simple things? And I guess when we heard that this was a complex situation, I remembered that. And I thought, well, here's a good opportunity to get involved in something that isn't just simple. And that was in 2005, and there have been considerable advances in immigration services since then, and indeed every other branch of the public service, as I'm sure Mr. Twyford would agree. You know, in Greymouth, quite recently, I understand an award was given to ACC, to the office there, following a survey of client satisfaction that showed an overwhelming positive response. And that's a good thing to hear about and a good thing to happen. Similarly, Mr. Speaker, with this particular bill, I think there has been a very good response and a good result. And it's been a pleasure to be part of the committee under the chairmanship of Honourable Ruth Dyson to reach this point. So let's go back to Rowan's complex situation for members who haven't been directly involved and the circumstances that the Government Administration Select Committee set itself to resolve along with the government departments involved. And I'll just go through, if I may, some key background points for members so that they can understand the seeming complexity. Rowan Sullivan, and my apologies to members of the family who've got to hear it yet again. However, Rowan Sullivan's parents from birth were Diane Sullivan, her birth mother, and Diane Sullivan's female partner, Doreen Shields. Diane Sullivan died in 2010 when Rowan was 17 years old. Doreen Shields chose not to adopt Rowan while Diane Sullivan was still alive, as this would have required the removal of Diane Sullivan's, that's the birth mother's name, from Rowan Sullivan's birth certificate. Doreen Shields instead applied to be an additional guardian. This expired on Rowan Sullivan's 18th birthday. You can see how the individual bits of legislation cut in at various points without the intention of dispossessing anybody of their mother. There was no intentional nastiness in this. It was just the way it played out. Doreen Shields applied for an adoption order following the death of Diane Sullivan. The order was made on the 15th of January 2013. 15th January 2013. However, the order required that Diane Sullivan's name be removed from the Rowan Sullivan's birth certificate. This must have been a huge wrench when that occurred. Had Diane Sullivan and Doreen Shields been able to legally marry, they would have been able to jointly apply to adopt Rowan. If this had occurred, they would both have been named as her parents on her birth record. Following, Mr. Speaker, the Marriage Definition of Marriage Amendment Act 2013, which by coincidence was passed through the same select committee, same-sex couples are able to marry and therefore to apply jointly to adopt children. This, in fact, Mr. Speaker, what happened was that Rowan was caught between two legislatures, no birth registration in New Zealand, and changes in adoption laws as they apply to same-gender couples. The Select Committee, Mr. Speaker, resolved to make some changes to the original bill following considerations and representations from the Department of Internal Affairs. And it would be quite remiss of any member of the committee if we didn't follow Louisa's comments and comment on the depth of information that officials have provided throughout this bill as it proceeded through the House. As it proceeded through the Select Committee. There have been really good levels of discussion and really good, interesting points. And let's, if we may, just consider some of these. The Select Committee recommendations have altered, Mr. Speaker, or proposed that the bill be passed with the following amendments. That the committee recommend that the title of the bill be changed to the Sullivan Birth Registration Bill. And that's because the title of the bill is introduced, here we go, the Sullivan Birth Certificate Bill, could be misleading as its passage would not directly affect change to Rowan Sullivan's birth certificate. And so we had these really intriguing debates, Mr. Speaker, where what is a birth certificate? It's simply a reflection of a birth registration. If you just change a birth certificate, that doesn't change a registration. If you lose that birth certificate, you apply for a copy, you go back to where you were before. And it was really quite intriguing. And there were other changes that we had to bring in to just bring everything to the situation that we're now at, which is being able, as members on both sides of the House, and I would imagine from all parties of the House, we are able to say, and I'd like to say it from the point of view of the Select Committee, job well done, and it's a delight to hear that the family are well pleased with the result, because, as I say, that they have introduced the fact that it's not really Rowan who's delighted, it's someone who's passed on, that it's been done for, and I think that's great that we've been able to assist in such measure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ko Moana Mackie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I'm not going to take too long in this call because I think the issues have been well traversed throughout the various stages. I want to recognise Rowan and Diane and Doreen